So I originally planned to film this as a video. I was ready to film in front of my camera, and I realized I wasn't feeling physically super great. And so filming actually just didn't feel right yesterday. So instead, I decided to do a recording because I feel so much more comfortable doing recording, and it feels like I'm still showing up for what I set out to do, but I'm also showing some kindness for myself and for the fact that I'm not feeling like my best self right now. And I thought that was such a great example of soft discipline, of like showing up, doing the thing I agreed to do, but also leaving space for myself to be human and to be flexible and adaptive. So when we decide to go for a new goal or implement a new habit into our lives, discipline is really, really necessary. And discipline means that we practice some self-control and we decide to show up even if we don't feel like it, even if it's super uncomfortable, and do it anyway for a certain amount of time. Because every new thing that we start is uncomfortable, it's difficult at first, we really have to make it part of a routine, and therefore being quite strict with the schedule, with when do we do it, how long do we do it, how much of it do we do, can be really helpful to actually do it, to actually show up, because it's already hard enough. So the more you actually make things clear for yourself and be detailed in what you want to do, the easier it is to actually do it. But what I've noticed with myself, and you might recognize that with you, is that sometimes that discipline can flip into being really harsh and critical to yourself, to feeling like you have to show up always, or else you feel like you're very disappointed in yourself, or you want to give up altogether because you didn't show up that one time. And it becomes this very rigid thing that's no longer enjoyable at all. It's no longer a source of pride. It's just like this chore, this really heavy chore that you have to do. And I think finding that balance of staying the course and motivating yourself and sometimes pushing through, but also allowing yourself to be human and allow life to happen sometimes is so healthy and quite a tricky balance to find. But there's a couple of questions that always help me when I feel like I'm going a little bit into the rigid region, and maybe they help you as well. So if you want to grab some pen and paper and journal about this a little bit, that can be super helpful. So the first question is the goal doable? Is it small and practical enough? Do you have the time and energy and mental capacity right now to actually follow through with this goal? Or is it too big right now? It's always so much better to start really small and to really be consistent with it, and then increase it as you get along, as you get better at it, as it becomes more natural, as it's more a part of your routine. So really, really see here and be totally honest if whether your goal is actually doable right now. And make it smaller when you feel like it's too big. The second question I'd like to ask you is, does your motivation come from a loving place or does it come from a critical place? Like, if you reach a goal or implement a habit, will you then feel great? Do you want to do it because you know how great you'll feel? Or is it because you currently don't feel enough, you don't feel smart enough, you don't feel healthy enough, you don't feel worthy enough? What are the words you use towards yourself when you think about the goal? Are you motivating yourself by saying like, okay, I shouldn't be lazy, I shouldn't be, are those words harsh and critical, or are they loving? And if they are harsh and critical, can you sort of choose a different approach that helps you be more loving towards yourself? Like, what is your motivation? Like, what is it going to give you when you do this? Like, how are you going to feel? How are you going to approach life? Like, what is it actually going to give you? And see if you can really be kind to yourself in that. The third question is, can you look at your progress over a longer period of time rather than just the day-to-day? If you look at just what you did last Wednesday, it might not feel like much. But if you look at it over a period of weeks or months and really see like, what have you done in all those weeks and months, and how have you improved? And That is such a different way of looking at it than just messing up that one time. Because in the greater scheme of things, that one day that you didn't feel like your best self or didn't show up fully doesn't really matter. It's really about just picking back up the next day and just keep going. So looking at it over a longer period of time can be really helpful to not be so harsh on yourself if one day you didn't show up or if one day it didn't go as you planned. And the fourth question is there time for fun and for rest in your schedule right now? We can't always be productive. We need time to rest. We need time to do things that are calming for our body and for our mind. And we also need to have fun sometimes, just have some joy, whether that's meeting with friends or just reading some fun books or doing some outdoor activities. And yeah, life can't just be committing to goals. So are you leaving yourself time for rest, for joy? And how do you feel about yourself when you're doing them? Does it feel like you're supposed to be productive or do other things? Or can you really enjoy them and really allow yourself to have that fun or have that rest? That is such a big part of not being too harsh on yourself. Personally, when I'm being too harsh on myself or when my discipline flips into being rigid, I can tell in my body. I can feel myself tense up. It feels like a tightness in my muscles. And I really notice like something's off. And you might have physical symptoms like that as well, but you notice like, okay, right now I am being critical to myself and I'm no longer doing this from a loving place. Asking myself these questions have really helped me find a better balance between being disciplined and also being kind to myself. It is a consistent process, though. It's not something that I do one time and it's done. And it's a big trial and error like a lot of things in life. But I hope it helps you look at yourself and see where you're being a little bit harsh to yourself and where you can come from a bit of a more loving place. Thank you for listening, and until next time.